It is September the 9th. It's 7 p.m. And boy, did I have an amazing experience this morning. And I want to tell you about it. It's interesting because I so wanted to tell my mom about the experience. And in my thoughts, she knows. She knows about it. But this was one of the most amazing experiences I've had since she passed on. And I wanted to share it with you. It was brief, but oh. So earlier this morning at it was about 6 in the morning. I was working on my fictional podcast. And when I do that, I usually end up staying up for very strange hours. I stay up, usually all night writing and, recording. And so that's what I was doing last night, Friday night. And at about 6 in the morning, I decided that I was going to just take about an hour or so to rest my eyes. Now, for those of you who are struggling with having an experience, I want to give you this example that I've talked about before, where I always say, if your mind isn't totally focused on having an experience, you might just have more of a chance of having it. So I wasn't really thinking about doing it, about having any kind of a shifting experience or astral projection experience. Normally when I am working on my fictional podcast, I'm just focused on that. So I laid back, I turned on sort of something in the background very, very softly. It wasn't any kind of music or binaural beats or anything. It was just sort of talking in the background, very light, because I knew I wanted to get right back up again. So I laid down and I was laying there for maybe 15 minutes, maybe 15, 20 minutes. And in that moment, the transition happened. And so because I had the talk on really softly, I couldn't really hear it. I could still hear it when it happened. And when the transition happened, I could still hear it in the background. But I also knew that it was like, okay, here we go. And I began to rise up. Now, for those of you who have listened to my channel, you know that one of the normal ways that I travel is through this sense or feeling of motion. But you also know that there are other ways that it happens with me. And this, rising up off my bed, I also want to make sure that I'm clear for the astral projectors out there that it's not a feeling of me separating from my body. It is that feeling when I actually shift, where I feel like my entire body is rising off the bed. No sense of separation. Now, as I was rising up, I was, I always try and fill my head with things like love and, connection, those kinds of things. And I was contemplating love as I was rising up into the air. But then it suddenly occurred to me that, this might be an opportunity to go into space and see the planets. This is something that I have thought about before, wanting to go do that. And I don't know that, I've had some experiences, but I don't know that I've actually, maybe traveled through the solar system or something. I thought that might be interesting. So right there, I decided in my mind, I said, okay, I just thought space, planets. That's it, guys. And let me tell you something. I was expecting to see Jupiter. I was expecting to see Saturn. I was expecting to see all the planets. So here we are. I have these expectations in my mind. But I gotta tell you, what I saw wasn't anything like that. What I saw, because it took a moment, and in fact, I remember because I was kind of turning, and I guess you could say that I was in the void, because I had that sense that I was, weightless and turning. And this is during that time when I was thinking and contemplating about, the planets and space and things like that. And one moment it was dark, and then suddenly there were stars. I mean, a lot of stars. I could see them. But that wasn't the most incredible thing that I saw. Not just stars. I mean, I guess I was in space. I saw these immense objects. Now, I assume that they were ships, but I can't really tell you if they were or not. I'm not 100% sure. I'm assuming that. They were, well, let me begin with this. They were the shape of, think of a starfish, okay? I know that sounds strange, but think of a starfish. Think of a starfish that's not laying down on, say, the ocean bed, but standing up, sort of, right? And you see this starfish. Now I want you to imagine a chain linked fence. It's getting stranger and stranger, but it's the only way that I feel like I can describe this, because it was the shape of a starfish, but it was it was metal. And it was like, in a way, it kind of reminded me of a chain link fence, except for each of the links were like cubes. They were like shaped in should I say cubes or squares? One of the two. Let me tell you guys that this thing was easily the size of a planet. And I saw multiple colors. I saw one, and then I saw another one, and I thought it was alive, because it seemed to be somehow repairing itself, like doing something to itself. I'm not 100% sure of this, and I always like to be 100% sure before I share something with you, but I almost imagined that it was reaching in to these links and doing things to them, fixing them, repairing them, that kind of thing. And I totally got the sense, guys, that it was a living being, that these things were living, they were alive. Heck, I wouldn't have been able to tell you where, if there was a pilot, if there was a crew, I wouldn't have been able to tell you where they were. Where were they? The way it looked was, it just didn't look like it would be possible. I don't know. It looked impossible to me. That's the only thing I can tell you. It was so amazing. And it was one of those times. It's one of those times where I really wished that I could take you guys and show you what I was seeing. Oh my God. And I was just totally like, oh, I mean, it was like, I guess if I were there in the physical, my mouth would just be hanging open, because I really wouldn't know what to say. So, as I say, I saw a series of these ships. I saw one, and then I saw another one. And then suddenly I was on a planet, and I was observing it. Now, I want to tell you guys that I was doing all of this as pure consciousness. There was no body. So I shifted, I guess you could say that I shifted to this place, wherever this place was, wherever in the universe it was, or if it was even maybe another universe. I don't know, another galaxy, who knows? But I shifted to this place, and I went from one spot or place to another instantly. And I didn't have a body per se. I was just pure consciousness. That was it. And when I was suddenly on this planet, I was floating, I was observing from a point above. It was one of the most extraordinary cities I've ever seen. Now, what I'm about to describe to you isn't going to do it justice because I don't know how to describe it to you to do it justice. There were these buildings that looked like skyscrapers, but they were as tall as anything I'd ever seen. They were way taller than any skyscrapers I'm certain that we would have in this world. And the buildings themselves, I couldn't see color with them. That's the other thing. All these buildings looked like almost dark, maybe? Like dark, and I could see lights. If you saw this building, you might think, or you saw these buildings, you might think you were in a downtown area of a big city. But then, if you kept looking at them, you'd be going, wait a minute. Because there was something about the shape and the size. One of the things I noticed was they all seemed to be the same size and the same shape. And they were all together in this cluster. And I was just observing this thing going, oh my God. It was some kind of civilization. And I don't know where it was. I didn't see any of the beings, but it was extraordinary. And it's interesting. I came back not long after this. I was back and I opened my eyes and I thought to myself, okay, I have to share this with my community because wow, this was really, really cool. And I've said this before, but I'm going to tell you how grateful and how blessed I feel that I am to have the access that I do. It's such a blessing. It's so amazing. And as I have said before and will continue to say, guys, I am humbled by all of this. I don't know that I understand. I honestly don't understand much of any of it, but I am humbled by it, and I'm so happy that it continues to happen because there are no guarantees. I mean, I could, one day stop seeing this stuff. So every time I see something, every time I experience something, well, I try and treasure it as much as I can. Anyway, thank you so much for coming on this journey with me. And until next time, take care.